3 weeks ago, Bristol Airport was hit with a ransomware attack, which took out all of the passenger information streams for 3 days. Now, Bristol Airport is a small airport, so the staff were able to keep passengers informed by using flip charts and whiteboards. Now, imagine that was Heathrow, or Gatwick, or all the UK airports. The losses would have been huge. It would have been chaos, and some of those losses would have fallen undoubtedly on the insurance industry. So understanding cyber risk and the cause of it and its effects is really important. And especially in this day and age, the world is getting more and more interconnected. So my name is Michael Crawford, and I'm from Describe Data. And I'm going to tell you about a cyber product that we've been working on for the insurance industry. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. At Describe Data, we're an eclectic bunch of PhD data scientists, actuaries, and IT professionals. Now, we've about 100 years of experience in the insurance industry, and we've a history of designing and developing and delivering software. We've done it for years. We've built enterprise systems, we've worked on pricing models, and over the last 5 years, we've done an awful lot of work doing bespoke data analytic projects within the insurance industry. Now, we've concentrated at Describe Data at the more unusual risks that insurers kind of deal with, things like political risk, terrorism, cyber. And we know that when insurers deal with these kind of risks, they tend to use an awful lot of qualitative methods and expert judgment. And this tends to be because reliable data can be quite hard to find, it can be really hard to handle, and it can be quite hard to interpret. But we know, because of our background, we have a background in data analytics and machine learning, that we can use those techniques to get a better quantitative understanding of those kinds of risks. So what do? We looked at cyber, was one of the risks we looked at. And the first thing we realized almost immediately, that there was really no reliable actuarial data on cyber. So a cyber underwriter or an analyst is more or less the same position as, say, a life actuary was in 1750, right? There is no data. They had to wander around the morgues, the hospitals, the churchyards, and build their data sets from scratch. And we've had to do the digital equivalent of that. Okay, so what did we do exactly? Well, the genesis of our idea came from working with a large American finance company that's based in Ireland. And they had a huge global IT estate. And they contacted us a while ago, a couple of years ago, and they realized they wanted to find out the cyber risk inherent in their global IT estate. And we thought, yeah, we'll have a crack at that. As we sat down and we looked at what we could do, and eventually what we came up with using there's a lot of vulnerability databases online that are curated by academia and governments. And we hit on the point of using that data in a quantitative way to build a risk map of their network. And they took that away. They were very happy. They got to go away and figure out where the weaknesses were. But we realized then that we could use that in an insurance context. We could expand the data sets, and we could use things like social media data to monitor ongoing and incoming threats. And that's effectively what we've done. Now, over the last year, this has turned into what we call a general risk engine called Comprino. And we pitched a version of this into the Lloyd's lab about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we got through to the finals, and we were first runner-up, which is why we're standing here. And so I think this has got, the idea obviously has legs, and we're getting some traction. So having built this model, so we've used kind of national vulnerability databases, we've used external databases that we've scraped off the web, we're using social media data that's coming in, a lot of machine learning, a lot of data analytic techniques to actually get an understanding of cyber that basically it relies quite heavily on our experience as IT professionals. So we have this model. So we kind of figure out what can we use it for. So the first thing we kind of thought about was using it for underwriting. I mean, because if you have a data-driven understanding of, say, someone coming in with an IT estate, of what their risks are, if you can figure out if that risk is good, bad, or just plain ugly, that is very, very useful. We can also use this type of model because it's, looking at the IT estate of either a company or across your whole book to do scenario analysis. So what we can do is we can do hundreds and hundreds of scenarios and give you a good idea as to where the risks lie, and maybe if you can take different remedial actions as to what happens. For instance, what you kind of see is the risk aggregations with cyber don't really lie along kind of geographic or industry sector. They lie on things like operating system, database server, web browser. So we can actually figure out from your state what the actual the threat surface is and model that over any number of scenarios. We can also use it as for ancillary services, such as providing kind of risk mitigation kind of advice to clients. There's an uptick in this sort of threat. The exposure's going up, and that's very, very useful. So what traction have we had? Well, we've talked to a lot of people in the market over the last kind of 3 or 4 months, insurers, reinsurers, and brokers, and we've had a lot of interest. So why am I talking to you tonight? Well, we'd really like to bring this product to market. So if you're an insurer, if you're a reinsurer, if you're a tech company, if you're a broker, and you really want to get down to grips with cyber insurance and cyber risk in a technical way that uses machine learning, data, come and have a chat with us. We'd love to see how we could work together. Thank you very much. Oh, questions? Okay. Pardon? There was I think it was 250 companies got applied. I think 20 got through to the final, and there were 10 chosen, and we came 11th. Now, we were told we were on the reserve list, and they still haven't told us we're not, so, But it started today, so there you go.
Hi there.
Hi.
Renma, yes. So you mentioned you worked with an American company earlier. You mentioned an American company that you worked with. Yes.
In Dublin.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And you also mentioned that you used their data to construct a model.
No, we used, for the job we did, we took their IT, what their IT infrastructure was, but we built a model that didn't rely, using external data. So what we could do is we could basically put any IT infrastructure through this model and go, okay, how far is it from the perfect setup?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alison. I work for Renaissance Re, and I'm IT manager there. I'm really interested in combining what you're talking about with what the others have talked about. Can I use your product to assess the risk of my third parties, but the lovely lady from Cambridge said I should really worry about, because that's where the real risk is? So you guys are all talking about products for assessing risk. Can I get you to take the product and assess the risk from my supply chain?
Well, what you kind of need to know is have a reasonable idea of what they're running and what systems they're running. You could just ask them if they're a supply chain. They might say, well, this is part of doing business with us. If you can do that, we can figure that out.
Hi. You mentioned that you need to have an understanding of what kinds of systems the modeled entity is running. Typically, large insurance portfolios, you won't have that information at all. You'll know information about, you'll have the company name, maybe the business sector, the revenue, etc. How do you kind of marry those model requirements with
that is one of the issues we've come up against when we've talked about this to incumbents in the market. A lot of it is, well, we want them to fill in this form, we're not that interested. And, I don't really have an answer to that. I kind of think, though, that's like kind of insuring hurricane, against the hurricane, on a building where you don't know where it is, you don't know what it's used for, and you don't know what the construction type is. That might be the case now. That's probably not going to be the case in the 5 years' time.
Hi, my name is Hayden Brooks from Risk Ledger. Quite a lot of cybersecurity risk actually isn't tech-based, so I'm thinking things here like governance and process. So does your product in any way assess the risk that comes with that?
No, at the moment, cyber is a very, very broad church. And I'd say over the next 10 years, every risk is going to be a cyber risk. We are literally eating that elephant one bite at a time. We're assessing the risk in IT systems at the moment. But you are going to have to look at things like, we've talked to, say, for instance, I talked to a couple of people here, but before this, we've talked to a couple of companies that do basically put in network monitoring software. They put on a network tap, they basically sniff your packets, and they do kind of machine learning on the heuristics in network, and they can spot anomalies, people transferring more data than they should. And that hit things like, okay, we've got a rogue actor in there, and that'll basically address things like operational risk. So these things, slowly but surely, will get dealt with. But I think it's going to fall into a number of buckets. And basically, at the moment, we're just addressing one bucket. And we appreciate that. But you've got to start somewhere.
Michael, thank you very much.